Hey guys, and welcome to the Red Shadows PC game collection. One of my final collection videos slash series. This will only be one video. I'm just going to knock it all out in one. But this is one that actually, the more I looked over this stuff as I was trying to sort it all out, I was like, man, this is kind of nostalgic here. Some of these PC games that I have here go all the way back to the late 90s for me. But anyway, let's go ahead and just jump right in. Now the first thing I'm going to show actually is not what it seems to be. This says Beavis and Butthead in Virtual Stupidity. But that was actually a different Beavis and Butthead game than what is inside of this. I bought this from a little PC software and game store that no longer exists. And I bought it a long time ago. But inside of it, this is the disc for what's called Beavis and Butthead in Little Thingies, and down below it says Action Minigames, and then behind that, in this case, is Beavis and Butthead Calling All Dorks, and that says Entertainment Utility. Basically what it was Little Thingies had a bunch of small, sort of like mini games, and the other one had, as it said, Action Utilities. It actually had cursors and sound effects and stuff that you could put on your computer, and you know, like when you were clicking on stuff or whatever, it would make Beavis or Butthead laugh or something like that. It was really, really cool. Now this was actually designed for Windows 95. I'm not sure if I've even tried to put this on my new computer, that's Windows 7, to see whether or not that would even work. But it was a very, very fun game. It was very cheap. I didn't pay much for it, so no big deal. And I am trying to do this roughly in alphabetical order. If I mess up somewhere, you know, please forgive me for that. Next thing up I have here is Bejeweled Blitz. This is the, you know, obviously the actual boxed version of it. But as it says, play with your friends on Facebook. I got into Bejeweled Blitz because it popped up on Facebook and I played against a lot of people, but I wanted to have the actual game so that I could play it whenever I wanted to without, you know, it necessarily being hooked to the internet and all that, and I could practice on it. And now for some reason it will not load up on my computer. It acts like it's not activated or something like that. Next is actually a favorite of mine. This is Bookworm. This is the Bookworm Wordy Wonder Bundle. This is a 3-game collection. It's Bookworm, Bookworm Adventures, and Bookworm Adventures Volume 2. I prefer just standard Bookworm. Standard Bookworm. The Adventures games are okay, but I don't know. It's like they tried to turn them into some sort of a history game, and have you move around and do certain things. Bookworm is perfectly fine with me. I love that game. Alright, the next thing up here I have is Black and White, and on the back of this package is Black and White Creature Isle expansion pack. This is one of the earlier God games that I'm aware of, and for a while I really enjoyed it, and then after a while I started to get kind of bored with it. The gameplay style and all that is just really not for me. Now here is a really awesome game that I love, a game that I've never even completed before, but this is Blade Runner for the PC, and this is actually considered to be one of those better movie tie-in games. It's not necessarily the game of the movie, but it's based in that universe, and it talks about replicants and all that kind of stuff. And Blade Runner is a movie that I need to watch again and get versed in. I've only seen it once, but I bought this game even before I'd ever seen the movie and just fell in love with it. It was really cool, kind of sort of a point-and-click style game, kind of sort of. Speaking of point-and-click game, though, here's another one of my favorite PC games. This is Broken Sword, The Smoking Mirror. The whole Broken Sword series is really awesome. It's a point-and-click style game where your character moves around on the screen, and you click on things and talk to people. A dialogue system. Sometimes there are quick little action events that you have to take control in. But anyway, it's just a really good game. And there's a whole series of Broken Sword games. Now here's a classic here. This is the Collector's Edition Doom. This has the Ultimate Doom, Doom 2, and Final Doom on it, as well as desktop wallpaper, concept art, screenshots, trailers, and it had a preview for Doom 3. It didn't have a demo for it. Doom games, I don't know, they're a nostalgia thing for me. They're not necessarily the best games ever, first-person shooters and whatnot from the 90s. But that was like $10. I couldn't pass it up. Okay, the next thing I'm going to show is this. No, this. Alphabetically, this really would be the next thing. This is Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Game of the Year collection, or Game of the Year edition, that has Oblivion and the Knights of the Nine and Shivering Isles expansions. I haven't played this on my new computer, but on the previous computer I had when I got this, the game chugged along and was very, very slow and kind of painful to try to play. Graphics didn't look all that great. And somewhere along the way I decided to go ahead and pick up the version for Xbox 360, and that'll probably be my preferred playable version. Speaking of Xbox games, here is something that's kind of known from the original Xbox, but I have it for the PC. And this is Fable: The Lost Chapters. This is basically the original Fable game, as well as expanded content. This just has more regions, storylines, and side quests, as well as new optional missions. I kind of like the Fable games. They weren't everything that I'd hoped that they would be. This is from Lionhead Studios, who did the Black and White games, and this seems to be kind of like a bridge between those kind of god games and RPGs. And I've only dabbled in the Fable games a little bit. Alright, now I'm going to show this bizarre little collection of games from something called the Games Master series. These are actually games that I bought at a dollar store. This is called Southern Fried Elves. Yeah, and it's just about as bizarre as it sounds. And then there is Puzzle Troubles, which is just a bunch of puzzle games. Then there is Combat Cars, which is sort of a top-down, car combat game. And then there's Football Manager. This is basically a sim football game that has absolutely no ties to the NFL, so there's no actual teams, logos, or players or anything. And I suck at this. But those were, like I said, dollar store games. So for $1 a piece, it didn't really matter that they absolutely sucked. Alright, the next thing we're going to show here is Just Cause. I bought this at a store in my area called Big Lots, and it was relatively cheap. It was probably $5 or less. I always wanted to check out Just Cause. At the time it came out, it just looked like GTA in a jungle. Nowhere near the polish of a GTA game, but it wasn't too bad. Alright, then the next thing we're going to show here is the Murder Mystery Collection. That particular name doesn't really say much for it, but some of the games on here are Still Life, Still Life 2, Loch Ness, and Postmortem. Especially like with the Still Life games, those are pretty popular mystery games, point-and-click style type adventures almost. Basically, they're just really slow as far as moving around on the screen, but kind of reminds me of Broken Sword and whatever that was I was talking about earlier, like Blade Runner and that style of game. Let's put that there. Alright, and the next thing that we have here is Myst. And Myst is a game, I mean, it's an iconic game. At one point, it was the highest selling video game of all time for the computer. And this is basically, in my opinion, the game that really broke those point-and-click adventure games onto the scene back in, when is this, 1990... It says copyright 93 and 96. I tend to believe more that 96 was probably about when this was released. This is just kind of one of those things where you have to have this in your collection if you're a PC gamer. some form of it. There's a lot of redos and reversions of it that you can find out there. And the next thing up that I have to show here is in just a very plain case because I don't have the box for this anymore. But it's a game called The Orion Conspiracy. This is old school. This is like, I think this one has to be loaded up in DOS. It's from 1995, but I remember having to jump through some hoops to get this game to play. Reminds me visually a lot of Broken Sword. It's kind of an animated, like a cartoonish kind of thing. And I remember this also being very controversial because there was some language in it. It was some frank subject matter. It was also had some homophobic elements to it, which was kind of surprising. But it's also just a good little like murder mystery on a space station, as I remember it. It's like I said, it's been a while because it's kind of hard to make that game play on some of the newer computers out there. Now here's a couple of my favorite games of all time, especially the second one here. But this is the Phantasmagoria Stage Fright game pack. This has Phantasmagoria and Phantasmagoria Puzzle of Flesh together on little discs and little sleeves. Each game is several discs long. I think it was like 7 for the first one and 5 for the second one or something like that. I shouldn't have taken that out of there because now the box isn't going to want to close. I'll have to fix that. But anyway, those are pretty great. And I have a video about A Puzzle of Flesh on my channel. Check that out if you want to know some more of my thoughts. Now here's another thing that's really, really awesome. I love having this in my collection. I don't know if this is the only way it was released is like this, or if it came in a big box version or anything, but this is Pissed. And this is the parody of Myst that I showed earlier. So, as I mentioned, Myst was one of the highest selling PC video games of all time back in the day before The Sims came along. And what Pissed does is say, this is what the island where Myst takes place would look like after 4 million, it says down here, 4 million people have trashed the island, now it's your turn. This is what the island would look like after all those people had played it and it had become like a tourist trap. And there was seedy souvenir sellers and trash everywhere, and the inhabitants of the island are all jaded and bitter because of the experience that it had. And John Goodman actually plays the king in this. And the acting by him and the other couple characters that are in it is pretty funny. But I don't know, I really, really love it. I've played it a few times, but it's been forever. Definitely really something cool to have in your PC collection. Especially, like I said, if you know about Myst. Alright, the next couple of things I'm going to show aren't really games, but they're in my PC collection, so whatever. This is the Rand McNally Street Fighter Deluxe from 1998. Feel like this is the precursor to GPS systems, only you couldn't take this really in your car unless you had one of them big old bulky 90s laptops. And it's never been opened. It was something cheap I bought somewhere along the way. And then there's Rand McNally Tripmaker 1998 edition. And I actually remember when Street Fighter and Tripmaker were pretty big programs back like when I worked at Shopko in Montana and stuff. And I got a couple of them here. This one has been opened and I think I've used it, but the other one I have not. Alright, let's see. So the next thing up here would be Riddle of the Sphinx. This is a not so great point-and-click adventure. I mean, I'm sure it's fine, but I played it a little bit and it just didn't have the polish that like Myst or the next thing I'm going to show do. But it was cheap and it was okay. The next thing that I have here to show is Riven, the sequel to Myst. Now this is my original copy. This is all that remains of it, is the box that all the discs come in. And the reason why I'm pointing that out is because I do have the big box version, but this is something I bought last year. I wanted to collect thanks to a YouTube channel that I love to watch called Metal Jesus Rocks, I wanted to collect big box versions for about 5 or 6 of my favorite old PC games, and I've managed to get 2 of them. Riven, the sequel to Myst, being one, and as it says in the title, it's the sequel to Myst, but this is the sequel or the Myst game that Myst could have been had it come out a few years later. Beautiful game, beautiful atmosphere, interesting story, puzzles that make me kind of want to shoot myself sometimes, but I have a strategy guide for it, so that helps out. That's a great game, and like I said, I'm excited to have the big box version of it. Alright, let's see. The next thing up to show is Sanitarium. Now this is one of the games that I want to find the big box version of that I don't have yet, because this is another one of my favorite old mid to late 90s PC games. Whole lot of fun. It kind of has that isometric viewpoint that, say, a Diablo or something has, but there's no real combat in it. It's point and click and dialogue and storyline driven, and it's really amazing. It's got very cool atmosphere to it. Alright, let's move this stuff around here so that my games don't get in front of the camera. In fact, I'm going to put this down here until I get to it. Okay, so the next thing that we have here is another Myst-style point-and-click adventure, and this game is called Schism. This game has a lot more polish to it than some of the aforementioned ones, like Riddle of the Sphinx, and a little bit more, what would you say, I don't know, like the point-and-click style adventure games like this, like you click left or right and the viewpoint just looks and it's a static image, and you click on things in it, and sometimes it might trigger like an FMV sequence. But this one actually had a lot more movement and stuff involved to, you know, moving around in the game. And it had an unusual and kind of confusing story to it. But I've never beat it because I found it to be kind of difficult. So I'm gonna eventually, one of these days, I hope, be able to play it and advance a little further in it. Alright, so yeah, I guess the next thing up here would be Star Trek games. Star Trek Deep Space Nine Harbinger. And this is 2 discs, shows up there in the top where it says 1 of 2 and 2 of 2. But this game is old enough that it also messes with my newer computers, and I have a hard time getting it to run. But it's a point-and-click adventure-style game set on Deep Space Nine. This is my second favorite Star Trek behind The Next Generation, so I couldn't pass up a game like that. I've never been able to beat it. Like I said, I can't get too far into the game, and now it doesn't want to cooperate with my newer computers. But it's definitely well worth having. Now here's a game that I feel like I had the actual box for this up until the last 10 years or so, but I don't seem to have it anymore. But this is Star Trek Hidden Evil, and this is a little bit more of an action-oriented Star Trek game, and this stars the Next Generation cast, Data and Picard and them, and it's actually a really fun game. I have completed it at least once, maybe twice, and had a good time with it. I have a strategy guide for that one. And then the last Star Trek thing I have to show is a Star Trek Encyclopedia, reference guide to the future, and it basically is what you think it is. It's an encyclopedia of Star Trek stuff up until the time that this was made, around 97, so it would have covered everything Next Generation and some Deep Space Nine. Alright, and then we're going to show this. This is obviously something that I really love having. It's Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic for the PC, even though right now I'm playing it on a Steam version that I bought recently, which I need to cover before this video is over about Steam. But I just feel like that version works a little bit better than the disc version does. And I also have it on the Xbox, so I'm kind of covered when it comes to Knights of the Old Republic. Let's see. So the next thing that we would show is TMNT, the game that came out for the movie that came out back in the like mid 2000s. This says 2007, and this is okay. I've played a little bit of it, not too much. It's about what I expected. It's kind of a platformer hack and slash style game, and that's that. And the last couple of things that I have to show here. Yeah. This is Unreal. This is the actual original Unreal game. A lot of people are probably familiar with Unreal Tournament, or are familiar with the Unreal Engine being used on a lot of games, even all the way up until today. This is the original FPS Unreal game. I really enjoy this game, but I never really got all that far with it. I had more fun using cheats and stuff to fly around the world and just kind of see what laid outside of the normal boundaries of the game. But it's very bloody, very visceral for the time anyway. It has really blocky graphics. It's nothing really pretty to look at now. But I still enjoy the fact that I own that. And one more kind of throwaway software thing, but this is Webster's Concise Encyclopedia. This is also pretty old. It shows this is working for Windows 3.1, 3.11, and Windows 95. So this is probably, a little bit on the old side. And I'm going to show two things here, somewhat out of order, and then I'm going to finish with something else. But this is my X-Files big box version. To be honest with you, I don't know where my actual X-Files game is. I think I put that somewhere else here in my living room, but I have this to show. This was one of the other PC games I wanted to get in the big box, so I got this last year. This comes with the game, another copy of the strategy guide, so I have two, but this is my complete boxed copy. Really, really excited to have this because this is like one of my favorite PC games of all time, if not my favorite one. Okay, and then like I said, I'm showing these out of order, but I'm ending with one big series. But this is You Don't Know Jack Volume 3. And I don't know what I can say. I can't really do justice to these You Don't Know Jack games, but they were freaking hilarious. Really, really funny. Amazing presentation to these. There were several of them, at least 3 volumes. I know that they also did like straight up movie versions, straight up sports versions and whatnot. And then they came back later and put it on the console and the PC again. And there's also some other similar to You Don't Know Jack, like trivia games and party games. This is better when done with friends. This game like chastises you for screwing up stuff in games. It's pretty hilarious. And then the last things that I'm going to show, I guess actually before I even show them, I just wanted to point out that this is all of my physical PC games. On Steam I have well over 200 games. That includes some games from like Origin and a few of these that are installed on my computer. But digital wise, I have a lot more than this. But I'm still, despite the fact that I'll spend money on those Humble Bundle sales, Steam sales, GOG.com sales, Origin freebies and sales, I still prefer the physical stuff. And actually, before I show the last group of stuff, or the last series of games, I wanted to show, these are some of the manuals and stuff that I came across while I was looking through my collection, and a demo disc. I'm going to forget all this stuff if I don't watch it. Anyway, this is King's Quest Mask of Eternity. I had this game at one point. I really, really enjoyed it. I don't know what happened with the actual game, but I still have the manual for it. Then this is the Orion Conspiracy Manual. And Devlin's... and I just dropped it on the floor. Devlin's Story from the Orion Conspiracy. Those were a couple of the inserts that came with that game. There's my manual for Sanitarium with the wonderful imagery there. And this blows me away because I don't even think I ever owned this on the PC. But I have, and it's a big one. It's a manual for the original Diablo. Like I said, I don't believe I ever owned this for PC, as I'm not a super big fan of Diablo. But I have that. And I'll show this demo disc real quick. Free playable demos, which includes a demo for Final Fantasy VII. That's probably a pipe dream, but that's one that I would love to have. The sort of it's square. Well, no, it's not square shaped. It's four-sided, but it's the box version of Final Fantasy VII for the PC, and it just has a really cool shape to it. And I'd love to find that one of these days. It's not a priority. It would just be something I would love to stumble across. But this had a playable demo for Final Fantasy VII. Also includes Tomb Raider 2, Dominion, Commandos, Daikatana, and who knows what else. But mainly love having this because it's a Final Fantasy VII thing, and I pick up a lot of Final Fantasy VII demo discs. And, well, like I said, excuse me, I want to get the box version of it. I have a Steam version of it. Well, it's actually the SquareEnix.com or whatever version of that. Oh, I could go on and on and on about that, but let's try to wrap this up. And I'm finishing off with one of my favorite PC games of all time. I've done some videos about this. It's World of Warcraft, and this is my original big box version. I didn't get into the game in the beginning, so this is not an original copy like from 2004. But this is my version, my original, and I can tell that there's something heavy in this box, so I'm kind of curious. It's probably all the discs, now that I think about it. Oh, well, there's the big game manual, but like everything is still in here. All the paperwork, my key, and everything for it, still in that. That's the, like I said, the very first World of Warcraft. Got the really cool fold-out box. Probably not coming across very well on the camera. And then Burning Crusade. This is in the smaller box, more like the DVD size. But once again, very cool fold-out cover to it. And then I have Wrath of the Lich King, also in the smaller DVD style box. And the interior of that. This is when I got into WoW. Like when I actually started playing WoW, Wrath of the Lich King was the current expansion that was out. And then here's my Cataclysm box. Still, at this point, my favorite of the expansions was Cataclysm. Just for the balls that it took for Blizzard to totally, destroy the world. So there's that. And I don't have a box for Mists of Pandaria. I actually was going to buy the collector's edition version of it. I would have been fine with a collector's edition of any version of the game. They've had one, as far as I know, for all of it, even from the original game. I would have loved to have just had one, but it was $80, and I put it on layaway, and then I talked myself out of it a couple years ago, and decided I would just buy the regular box version, but then I managed to get the digital deluxe version on sale for about the same price as the standard box version. So I had to go for that. Oh, I hate buying digital stuff, but when there's good deals, there's good deals. Okay, and the final thing I'm going to show in this is not actually even a PC thing, but I didn't have this when I've done some of my previous World of Warcraft videos. But this is the Cataclysm soundtrack. I bought from somebody online for pretty cheap, and I just had to pick that up. I've never even opened it out of the shrink wrap, but I want to open it someday and put it on my computer and put it on my MP3 player and all that. So anyway, that's that. That's my physical PC games, some manuals, a demo disc, a soundtrack CD, and that pretty much covers it, guys. So thank you a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.